When I record my usual videos, I'm at a nature reserve in Staffordshire, and that nature reserve has a rather charming lake. However, this one is somewhat better, because this week, Mrs. Disgruntled and I are at Lake Garda in northern Italy among the Italian Alps. But before we got here, our journey began back in Birmingham. Before the video starts, something unusual just occurred. I went down to the lakeside there to film the start of the video and got propositioned by two homosexual motorcyclists. Anyway, let's go to Birmingham. We're at Birmingham Airport. Just been through security. I went straight through, but Mrs. Disgruntled, she had her bag searched. But given that she's a Catholic from Northern Ireland, that's probably quite sensible.
Well, she gave me the book as well. Yeah, that one.
There's a screen up there, Matt. You've got.
For the ladies, you've got the Carolina Herrera Good Dog Lunch. This could pack her a bag for yourself.
We left Birmingham and it was overcast, and now we're in North Italy and it's raining. This is Verona, famous of course for being the setting for Romeo and Juliet, but soft what light through yonder window breaks. You get some fucking culture with this video. Apologies for the very poor lighting. It's now 10 o'clock at night, but here is Lake Garda. And it's absolutely stunning. It's not a bad start to the day. Using a zebra crossing in Italy, just walk into the road and hope they stop, because if you make eye contact, well then you've seen them. We're down at the lakeside and Mrs. Disgruntled looked at one of the jetties and asked, "Can I walk on that?" And I said, "Of course you can." To which he replied, "No, you go on it first in case it collapses." Joy. Mrs. Disgruntled has found some jewellery shops. Anything that sparkles. It's like being married to a fucking magpie. It's our first full day in Lake Garda. We left the hotel less than 2 hours ago. Mrs. Disgruntled, what have you just bought?
A diamond ring.
Yeah. Today is the 4th of July, so it's the general election back home in the United Kingdom. That's really stressing me out today. Crossing the road again. Just step out, pray, and I'm still alive. I just got told off by the shop owner for taking a video of that sign. The wife and I have been coming to Italy for 11 years now, and in all that time I'm yet to understand the rules of the road for the Italians. It appears to be that provided the piece of tarmac you're driving on doesn't have anyone else on it, that's grand. Things like traffic lights and speed limits are merely recommendations to the average Italian motorist. In fact, whenever we go to book a holiday, the travel agents always ask, will you be hiring a car? There is no way I'm sharing the road with these mad bastards. All the way along the main road here in Garda are these beautiful old buildings, all of which have a plaque on them explaining when and why they were built, and also that between 1943 and 1945 they were used in some capacity by the Nazis. Not the Italian fascists, the Germans. And it's got me thinking, if Hitler's finest hadn't spent so much of their time either over there in the Swiss Alps trying to hunt down Julie Andrews and the Von Trapp family, or sunning themselves on the shores of the Italian lakes, the Second World War might have turned out differently. That does sound like I'm advocating for the Nazis. Just for the record, I am not in favour of any of the ideas of the Third Reich. This is impressive with our hotel. I can sign into my Netflix, so I can watch English language films, including this Japanese film dubbed into English, rather than endless repeats of MASH. That's my cultured Irish wife. So, it's the end of our first full day here at Lake Garda. I've been in the sun all day, so I'm dehydrated, and the few liquids I've taken on have been beers, so I feel ever so slightly pissed. Onwards and upwards. It's Friday morning, and I've woken up to the news that Britain now has a Labour government, and we're off for our first day taking the ferries across Lake Garda. I've noticed that in the area there's an awful lot of Germans. That's not a bad thing. We don't mind Germans in other European countries, provided they haven't turned up with tanks and dive bombers. Well, this is fun. We're now in Sirmione after taking the fast ferry, and taking the fast boat sounds like fun. Sitting up on the top deck enjoying the sunshine, it's fucking freezing. The last time I was blown about like that was last year when I had my first flying lesson in a Tiger Moth biplane. Who knew you could come to Italy in July and go home with frostbite? It's a lot of steps, but the view's worth it. Well, I did the steps, you get it for free. Just made my way down from the main tower. I'm an Englishman surrounded by Germans inside a fortress. This is my Colditz. I keep seeing signs for the emergency exits, but I'm wondering what's going to happen that means the fortress isn't the safest place to be. Is that tight enough? This would be too tight for cars, they'd pedestrianise it. In Italy, it's still a main road.
For to drink, we'll just have a Coke Zero.
That's commitment to being a goth. Coming to Italy in 30-degree heat and carrying a parasol so she doesn't get a tan. Something that's wonderful about this picturesque medieval town is that despite the chaos that we've seen cars causing, push bikes are banned. And the area is very popular with cyclists, so they have to chain their bikes up outside of the town centre and walk around in their cycle clothing. So there are people with that lycra that looks like they've been wrapped in exceptionally colourful cling film and their ridiculous go faster aerodynamic helmets. And if you think cyclists look daft when they're on the road, when they're walking around without a push bike, that's a whole new level. We've just got on the fast boat back to our stop, and it's not just a boat, we're on the fucking hydrofoil. Just been for a meal, and something really nice about dinner in Italy is you don't have a member of the waiting staff coming up to you every 5 minutes going, "Is everything okay with your meal, guys?" Because they're Italian. And I know it's better than anything we have back in Britain. I'm going to end today by having a proper geek out because until today, I'd never even seen a hydrofoil in real life. And for anyone unfamiliar with the concept, a hydrofoil is a boat with two foils under the hull acting as wings in as much as they provide lift, enough lift to lift the entire hull of the boat out of the water. Therefore, there's less drag or water resistance, so the boat goes faster. And two things struck me. First of all, the ride was incredibly smooth. And secondly, the fucking speed of the thing was unreal. To the point I felt sorry for the guys with their yachts and their powerboats getting blown away by the local ferry. That's the equivalent of buying a Ferrari and getting blown into the weeds by a double-decker bus. This morning, we're off to a museum. Mrs. Disgruntled saw the sign and thought the museum is about Dante's Inferno. It's actually about the divine infant, so the baby Jesus. Mrs. Disgruntled?
Yeah,
What religion are you?
Catholic.
She's a Catholic. So I've done roughly 1 million steps to get here, and it isn't open for another 4.5 hours. Mrs. Disgruntled has decided she wants to sit in the sunshine for a bit, which, given that she is an Irish person, is extremely dangerous. So I'm just going to go exploring. I consider myself very fortunate that I've been to many, many beautiful places around the world. But bugger me backwards with a prize-winning leak. Garda is going to take some beating. What a prick. If you just look at these trees, in the UK you'd have to pay money to get into a stately home to see something like that. Mrs. Disgruntled just had a bird take some bread out of her hand. Now she's sat here like Snow fucking White.
What are you doing?
As you can see, the water's getting a bit choppy and the clouds have moved in. The weather forecast for tomorrow is from around about midday, 12 hours of solid thunderstorms. That doesn't bother me because I'm British and I've packed an umbrella. I'm made for this shit. I don't know if you can see, but back up the street there are 2 police officers, one of which is an extremely attractive young woman. So I don't know what sort of crime it is they're trying to solve, but if it means her locking me in a room and shouting at me in Italian for several hours, I'm guilty of it. Here is a church with a children's playground attached to it. So priests surrounded by young kids. What could possibly go wrong? I'm now at the next town up, heading north from where we're staying, and it is much of a muchness, but that's not a bad thing. For example, just back there, there's another beach, and at no point as I walk past did I think, oh no, more attractive young Italian women wearing fuck all. So what have I learned today? Well, it transpires that on a Saturday, everyone in Italy who owns a motorcycle descends onto Lake Garda, and who can blame them? With this scenery and these winding roads, if I lived here, another bike would be one of the first things I bought. Although, to be fair, if I could afford to live on Lake Garda, I wouldn't be worrying about the cost of a motorcycle. I'd also buy a boat. Now, my dad was a boat builder, and a lot of his side of the family have been in the Navy. Being on the water is very natural to me. Yet it gets me thinking, if I owned a boat, would I want to put it on a lake? Because as beautiful as this is, once you've seen it all a few times, what else do you do? On a lake, you can't go exploring. I hope one day I'm rich enough to worry about that problem. And I really hope that the thunderstorms which are forecast for tomorrow happen. Because apparently the storms that happen here in Garda are like nothing I will have ever seen in the UK. Also, right now, England are playing, I think it's Switzerland in the Euros. I'm not watching the match. and I don't feel like I'm missing out. We just went into the church, but there's a service going on as it's Sunday morning, so it's all best leave. Mrs. Disgruntled has found another jewellery shop. This will be an expensive morning. We've just been into a shop, and the shopkeeper thought the wife and I were German. Just saying. We just visited the tomb of St. Lawrence, which I found quite strange, but Mrs. Disgruntled, being the Catholic that she is, after 5 minutes, as we left, she went, "Bye, Lawrence," like she'd known him her whole life. We've just stopped at this cafe, and Mrs. Disgruntled just got bitten by a duck. I never thought I'd say that. It's raining outside, but I'm British and I come prepared. Right now, I feel incredibly proud. I've just walked past around a dozen Italians who were sheltering from the rain in the alcoves of a building back there, whereas I, a proud Englishman, have this walkway to myself because I know to expect this, to expect the worst. Even though it's July in Italy, part of me knows it could piss down with rain, and that's why I carry my umbrella. Rule Britannia. This is wonderful. Essentially, this is how you win world wars. Bit of rain, all the I-tiddly-I-ties run for cover. Us Brits, bit of waterproof canvas, jobs are good. I am rather trivialising the biggest conflict in human history. This evening, we had a meal at the hotel, and Mrs. Disgruntled and I were the only Brits there. All the other guests at the hotel were German, and the staff are all Italian. And it struck me that for the Germans and the Italians to communicate, they have to speak English. Which made me feel somewhat smug. The thunderstorms that were forecast haven't arrived as yet. There's been a bit of light thunder. Apparently, if they come now, it will be later this evening. But there's this very gentle light rain. And it's absolutely lovely. And I know I sound very soft and very poncy, but that's what it is. It's just lovely. Also, when I got back from walking in the rain this afternoon, the receptionist stopped me, and her English isn't great, but it's much better than my Italian, so I can't complain. And she basically said that because the shower in our room is leaking, which it is very slightly, and that repair can't wait until we check out in the middle of next week, would it be okay if we change rooms tomorrow? They're going to bump us up to a room with a view of the lake and change us from bed and breakfast to all-inclusive and then apologise for the inconvenience. With problems like that, you can inconvenience me all fucking day long. I think this is adequate compensation for a leaking shower.
I almost fell off the balcony.
One thing which goes against Lake Garda is it isn't as convenient as other places I've been in Italy. Now, in a way, that's a good thing, because it means there aren't shops selling tat every 150 yards. But although there's a shop next to the hotel, its opening hours are somewhat erratic, and this morning Mrs. Disgruntled had asked me to go to the pharmacy for her. The nearest pharmacy is 3.5 miles from our hotel. One thing which Lake Garda does have going for it is the locals here are much more relaxed than the average Italian. I mean, yes, using a zebra crossing, you still take your life in your hands. But most of the people here, they stop before their front bumper is touching the hairs on your leg. Many of them give you a wave, they're quite polite. Now compare that to, say, Rome, where I swear, if you buy a new car, the first thing they do is wire the horn to the ignition system, so the second you turn the key, it's blaring all the time you're driving. Another thing about Lake Garda is that, although I'm a foreigner, I haven't seen any of the other foreigners. The chaps who've paddled their way here from Africa but forgot to bring their passports with them. The men, because they're always men, who will spend their days selling knock-off crap on the streets to profit criminal gangs. And I'm guessing, because I haven't seen any of those types of chaps, there are far fewer police officers, so I'm guessing there's a lower crime rate. That's a very controversial opinion, but it's also true. Finally, I'm currently making my way back to the hotel using a route I haven't taken before, because I saw signs for a botanical garden and I was going to make clever comments like, as a Brit, I prefer to see shopping trolleys in the lake and a pensioner getting mugged by asylum seekers. But there was an entrance fee to the botanical garden. And it got me thinking, why would anyone pay to see greenery when all this is on show for free? However, in doing so, I now have no fucking idea where I am. Welcome to Danny Getting Lost in Italy. I'm heading downhill. That's got to be a good thing. The lake is over there. Success! I'm back on the main road by one of the buildings with a plaque about the Nazis. Mrs. Disgruntled is no longer on the balcony, so she's probably asleep. I'll creep in quietly and see if I can scare the shit out of her. Earlier today, I went swimming in the lake because the water is warm and clear and beautiful. But although, generally speaking, I'd say I'm a strong and confident swimmer, usually when I go swimming, it's either in a pool, which is a very controlled, very safe environment, or in the sea, which has salt water and added buoyancy. So given that I haven't been freshwater swimming since Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister, what I did for about the first 60 to 90 seconds wasn't so much swimming as not drowning. Not only have the hotel upgraded our room and upgraded our deal, when we arrived, Mrs. Disgruntled was wearing a Guns N' Roses shirt, and that's what they're playing tonight. It's our last full day in Lake Garda, so we've got tickets, hop on, hop off, all day for the boats. Instructions on how to use a bottle. As a species, we are doomed. Saulo. Mrs. Disgruntled?
Saulo.
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 Well done. What did you just say to me?
Love you.
No, what did you say?
I wish you could see it.
Yeah, Mrs. Disgruntled didn't think I've seen her eyes before. So this is Garda itself, and it's mostly bars and tats. Wonderful. We've been here 8 minutes, and the wife has found a jewellery shop. I think something's been lost in translation there. So that's it for our last full day here at Lake Garda. And I guess there won't be much more for this video because tomorrow we're just getting picked up by the coach and then flying back to Birmingham. So that won't be very interesting, or at least I hope it won't be very interesting. I hope the flight is very, very boring and not something that ends up on the Discovery Channel. As you've seen today, we've been to Saulo and the village of Garda itself, and although all of the villages around this beautiful lake have their own individuality, they are also much of a muchness because they all cater to tourists. And to be blunt, that's a good thing, or I wouldn't be here. I can't stand those people who get back from holiday and say, oh, we found this wonderful village. It's so bohemian, it's so rustic, it's so authentic, but you need to go now because in a few years, the developers will move in and it will be full of bars and hotels. And I think, well, I'll wait till then before I visit. I've been to Italy many times, and Lake Garda, relaxed isn't the right word. This is the most laid-back part of Italy I've ever been to. And generally speaking, the Italians are much more laid-back than the British. For example, last year, the wife and I went to Lake Windermere and went on the Windermere steamers. Now, the name steamers is a bit of a lie. Those boats all used to be steam-driven, now they're all powered by fucking great diesel engines. Yet, when you board them, these boats with a top speed of around 10 knots that go up and down Windermere 7 days a week and remarkably do not sink. You're giving a safety briefing akin to getting on board an experimental aircraft. There may as well be a sign on the gangplank reading, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." Now compare that to today, getting on the hydroplane here on Lake Garda. There's just a sign telling you where the life jackets are. But if anything goes wrong with that boat, if it strikes another vessel or has a catastrophic failure, there's a very good chance that most of the people on board will be dead extremely quickly. I think that reflects the difference in the psyches of the Italians and the British, or rather, the people who run Britain. Because I'm sure they know here on Lake Garda, if there was a catastrophic failure on one of the fast boats, like the hydrofoils, lives would be lost. But they also know the chances of that happening are so minuscule, then why fucking worry about it? Whereas in Britain, if you try to put the same boat on one of our lakes, it would never get wet. It would sit on the dock whilst people filled in endless fucking forms. So I'll be sad to say goodbye to Lake Garda, although I'm at the point of the holiday where I'm looking forward to getting home. But I've enjoyed it, and I hope if you made it this far, you've enjoyed it too. Now, for some exciting footage of an airport. Sitrep. We're at Verona Airport. We were driven here by a coach driver who, I won't say he was a bad driver, I'm assuming he's never seen a motor vehicle before. He treated the brakes like an on-off switch and managed to continuously stall an automatic, and that is an achievement. And now we're at the airport and we found out our flight has been delayed by 3 fucking hours. I'm not going to let it ruin the holiday, but no other industry gets away with this. If I turn up for work on Monday 3 hours late, I'll get sacked. But when it comes to flying from one part of the globe to the other, we all just accept it. And now the lights have gone off at the airport. Thankfully, the tour operators have now provided us with vouchers for light refreshments. These vouchers are worth €4 each, which is very useful given that at this airport a cheeseburger is €19. I'm on a plane full of football fans. This trip can get worse.
Today you can get it for just $42.40. Another one of the men's, we've got the Jean Paul Gaultier Duo, so this is basically a 2-in-1. You get 2 separately packaged 40ml.
We're now home. I was planning to be home between 10:30 and 11 o'clock. It's now 2 in the morning. But I won't let a flight delay ruin what was an excellent holiday, although a pet hate of mine is the absolute don't give a fuck attitude which all airlines seem to have when it comes to delays. Just an apology would be enough. That being said, if you made it to this point in the video, I hope you enjoyed coming away to Italy with me. Normal service will be resumed very shortly on Disgruntled Danny 2, and as ever, thanks for watching.